We have with us Minister Mohager Iqbal, Minister of Basic and Higher Technical Education of the BARMM. And we also have with us Attorney Omar Yasser Sema, Deputy Speaker of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, Mr. Asnin Pendatun, Cabinet Secretary, Members of Parliament Eddie Ali, Rasul Ismail, Professor Eddie Mapag-Ali, Attorney Shah Elijah Dumama Alba, the Attorney General of the BARMM, and we also have with us Director General Engineer Mohajirin Ali and Ma'am Fatima Dayan Ali. They're all here today, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, moving forward, I move that we approve on third reading Senate Bill number 2214. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Secretary will read the title of the measure and conduct a roll call vote.
Senate Bill number 2214, an act resetting the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, amending for the purpose Section 13, Article 16 of Republic Act number 11054, otherwise known as the Organic Law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, and for other purposes. Roll call vote, the Honorable Senators Angara,
Yes.
Senator Binay,
Yes.
Senator Cayetano. Yes. Senator De Lima, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Drilon,
Yes.
Senator Gatchalian,
Yes, I'll explain my vote after. Thank you.
Senator Go, Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Senator Ontiveros,
Aye.
Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid, Senator Marcos,
Abstain. If I may explain my vote later.
Senator Pacquiao,
Yes.
Senator Pangilinan,
Yes.
Senator Pimentel III, Senator Poe,
Yes.
Senator Recto,
No.
Senator Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Senator Tolentino, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar,
Yes.
Senator Zubiri,
Yes.
Senate President Soto III.
Yes. I count 60
Mr. President.
votes, 2
Mr.
negative
President.
votes, and 1 abstention. Who's that?
Mr. President,
Senator Manny Pacquiao is recognized. Yes, Senator Pacquiao.
Mr. President, I just want to
Ibigay
clarify
mo to kay ano.
what is my vote recorded, Mr. President. I just want to know.
Yes. You were recorded that, yes, you said yes.
Mr. President, I changed my vote, Mr. President.
17 ang bilang nyo. Sino? Wait, we are going to counter-check the votes. Those who did not respond, no, Recto said no. Oh, Villanueva did not vote. Oh. That's why my count is 16.
Mr. President, I changed my vote to no.
You are changing your vote?
Yes, Mr. President, for the record.
Well, I have not counted, so it's up to you. So you're voting against Senator Pacquiao? Yeah, I have not called it. Senator Pacquiao, are you voting no?
President, yes, Mr. President, sorry.
You're voting no?
No, Mr. President.
Yes, yes, you're voting no.
Yes,
Voting
no,
against.
President.
Voting against.
Against, Mr. President.
You're voting against. Okay, okay. So, with, correct, 15 affirmative votes, 3 negative votes, and 1 abstention, Senate Bill 2214 is approved on third reading. Majority Leader?
I believe some of our colleagues want to explain the vote.
Mr. President.
Before we do that, may we recognize the sponsor of the measure, Senator Tol Tolentino.
Senator Francis Tolentino is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po my esteemed colleagues in the Senate. Allow me to express my gratitude and the committee's gratitude for your support in ensuring the passage of Senate Bill 2214 or the act resetting the Bangsamoro parliamentary elections to 2025. This bill in substitution of Senate Bills number 2019 and 2025 filed by our dear colleague Senator Coco Pimentel and Senator Richard Gordon is a contribution of the 18th Congress in securing a lasting peace in Mindanao. Peace should be every person's birthright. Yet, this is not the case for our brothers and sisters in Mindanao who have endured the armed conflict in Mindanao for almost half a century. We have learned during the floor deliberations that implementing the comprehensive agreement of the Bangsamoro is never easy. We are confronted with the realities of on the ground affecting the normalization track. Similarly, the political legislative track was not spared despite the passage of RA 11054 or the Bangsamoro Organic Law in 2019. Less than a year since the 80 appointed members of the BTA took their oath of office on February 2019, the country was crippled by the impacts of COVID-19. In this backdrop, Mr. President, out of genuine desire to see the fullest expression of the peace agreement's promises, judiciously decided to postpone the next elections next year without trivializing the right of suffrage enshrined in our Constitution and the pursuit of democracy. Mr. President, the resetting of the parliamentary elections in the BARMM shows an honest and compassionate appraisal of the failures and hardships of implementing a complex peace agreement such as the CAB amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. No less than the Commission on Elections, the Department of Justice recognize the difficulty, if not the impossibility, of administering parliamentary elections next year in the region. Ilang araw na lang po, Mr. President, filing na po ng Certificate of Candidacy. As lengthily deliberated on the floor, Section 2 of the approved measure, though silent, will allow the incumbent BTA officers to serve in a holdover capacity until their successors have been duly appointed by the President, and this is consistent with the Supreme Court ruling in Licaros versus Sandigan Bayan, GR 130872, 25 March 1999. And the intent, Mr. President, is to prevent a vacuum in public services and to avoid a hiatus in the performance of government functions. Salamat po muli kay Senator Pimentel, Senator Gordon, for initiating the filing of this measure before this chamber. Also to our dear Majority Leader, Senator Juan Mig Zubiri, for diligently shepherding this measure as a true and well-loved son of Mindanao, and to all my colleagues who have interpolated and proposed amendments to this measure, and of course, to our Senate President for his reliable leadership. The passage of this measure will give us a chance to continue working towards attaining peace in the region and fully realizing the promises of the comprehensive agreement of the Bangsamoro. Adding 3 more years to the transition period is nothing compared to the 4 decades of violent conflict and almost 2 decades of grueling negotiations between the government of the Philippines and the MILF. But they should be, I'm underscoring this, Mr. President, but they should be transparent about the disbursement of public funds as requested by Senator Marcos. And they should finish the Electoral Code this coming 2022 to ensure the orderly conduct of elections come 2025, as Senator Ping Lacson would espouse. As legislators, it is our fervent hope for the Bangsamoro region to be a place where peace is most enduring. Peace is possible, and through this measure, peace is within our reach. Diyakuna, Hunaka, Salam, Fi Mindanao. Let there be peace in Mindanao. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Ping Lacson is recognized.
Mr. President, I voted against the measure because Republic Act 11054 is an organic law. which provides, among others, that which was ratified in the plebiscite by the people of the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. And the same Republic Act provides for the holding of election synchronized with the national and local elections, Mr. President. And as such, it is my belief that postponing the election should also be in accordance with the mandate of the people of the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, which should be decided in the plebiscite. That's all, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
I believe, Mr. President, Senator Gatchalian is raising his hand, after which Senator Senator Gordon, rather. And Senator Marcos also.
All right, Senator Gatchalian, thereafter
And Senator Recto.
Gordon, Marcos, Recto. Senator Gatchalian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, there are some who would say that the historic enactment of the Bangsamoro Organic Law on July 27, 2018 was a culmination of decades-long struggle to build lasting peace in Mindanao. For me, however, it is important to consider that the Bangsamoro Organic Law, not as the summit of our aspirations, but as the high-level camp from which we have embarked on the final ascent to the peak of peace and prosperity. Should we fail to ensure an effective transition, all our efforts will have been in vain. It is in this context that I vote yes on the measure, postponing the first BARMM regular elections and allowing the Bangsamoro Transition Authority to continue its vital work on the transition. Allow me to explain briefly. Fulfilling the BOL's mandate on groundbreaking political transformation and normalization may be the most ambitious challenge undertaken by the present administration, and one which will be passed on to the next few administrations as well. The reports of the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process and the Bangsamoro Transition Authority suggest that more time is needed to ensure a successful transition in pursuit of this mandate. Even before the pandemic struck, administrative limitations had already caused delays in the accomplishment of the government's institutionalization requirements mandated by the BOL. COVID-19 made these hurdles even higher. Restrictions on the movement and personal contact during the pandemic have slowed the pace of the normalization program to decommission 40,000 combatants and provide them with the government aid promised to them under the law. Only 12,000 former combatants have been decommissioned, well below the goal of 65% or 26,000 by the end of phase 3 of the process. The decommissioned combatants have only received 100,000 pesos cash advance from their 1 million pesos total normalization benefit package. The remaining 900,000 in housing, socioeconomic, and livelihood assistance have yet to be delivered. Thus, the normalization program, one of the critical elements of the peace deal underpinning the historic Bangsamoro Organic Law, needs more time to be completed during the transition period. It should also be noted, Mr. President, that considerable legal and administrative hurdles to hold regional elections in May 2022 have also been raised. In COMELEC and Bank Resolution number 10713 dated August 11, 2021, the Commission on Elections noted that the allocation of elective positions for the BARMM parliamentary elections cannot be determined because the Bangsamoro government has yet to pass a Bangsamoro election code. The apportionment of BARMM into legislative districts has yet to be achieved as well. Mr. President, the deadline for filing certificates of candidacy for the May 2022 election is only a month away. It seems unlikely that the Bangsamoro government will be able to fully address these legal gaps before then, thus making regional election a legal impossibility, as stated by the principal sponsor, Senator Francis Tolentino. Another point that must be raised is the overwhelming support among stakeholders for the postponement. Our view of 65 stakeholder position submitted to the Senate Committee on Local Government shows that only 3 stakeholders raised opposition to the postponement. The other 62 stakeholders, consisting of national government agencies, Bangsamoro politicians, NGOs, political and civil society groups, indigenous people's formations, and academic institutions, support the extension. The unequivocal multi-sectoral support for the postponement indicates that Bangsamoro stakeholders also realize the importance of dedicating more time and effort to normalization and organization of the regional government before ending the transition period. Based on the foregoing, Mr. President, it is abundantly clear that the postponement of the BARMM regional election is the most prudent course of action available at the moment. The postponement will allow the Bangsamoro government more time to lay down its foundation as a parliamentary government and implement critical transitional and normalization process that will foster the high standards of electoral integrity and political participation within the region. We must always keep in mind that the Bangsamoro Organic Law is an instrument of peace which seeks to unite all stakeholders behind a common goal. Our experts on the ground have advised us that ending the transition period and holding elections next year before all transitionary deliverables have been accomplished would be detrimental to achieving this goal. We should listen to them. Mr. President, I believe the continuation of the transition period is the most prudent course to take considering these circumstances, especially during the COVID-19 era. We have been on this long and hurrying climb for half a century now. With so much at stake, there will be nothing worse than to attempt a sudden dash to the summit ready within our sight, only to fall back down to the strife of our beginnings. This is not the time for our patience to falter. While it may take a bit longer than expected, I am confident that this is the best way to plant our flag at the summit of permanent peace in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, once and for all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Richard Gordon is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me just begin by recalling a man that I knew and who became my friend when I first went to Camp Darapanan in 2008. He welcomed me there along with other compatriots in the camp of the MILF. And we talked in private along with the whole MILF cabinet at the time. And there's a picture of us there. And he asked me if I was going to vote for the Bangsamoro establishment. And I was frank enough to say, no, I cannot vote for it because I thought there were constitutional constraints at the time. And I remember what he told me. He said, you know, Senator, he said, there have been so much blood and treasure that has been spent here. And I'm afraid if we do not get the peace, there will be more blood and treasure that will happen. I've never forgotten that. It's one of the most important facets of my life, at least so far as our countrymen in Mindanao are concerned. Napakahalaga po nung moment na yun na talagang nakita ko ang sinseridad itong tao na ang pangalan ay Jafar Ghazali. And we were met there and we broke bread as in the Muslim tradition of hospitality. But he also introduced me to the mass base of women, young people in that meeting. And at that meeting, I knew that we had to have the peace. There was a sincere desire. Gusto na nila talaga magkaroon ng kapayapaan at gusto rin natin magkaroon ng kapayapaan. Hindi yung mauna ako sa kapayapaan. Kailangan magkaroon tayo ng kapayapaan. And so today, as we talk about, I don't think it was half a century. I'm not trying to correct Senator Tolentino. I think he meant more than 7 decades na itong bakbakan dyan na hindi natatapos. Let me just point out that there have been 100,000 to 151,000 people estimated to have died in the conflict. many young Mindanaoans, I don't want to call them Muslims or Christians, Mindanaoans, Filipinos first, and Mindanaoans second. Filipinos first before we're Muslim or Christian have died, Mr. President. There have been so many initiatives that have fallen by the wayside. Hindi natutuloy, nauudlot. Kaya nung ginawa ito na Senator Subiri, as you know, we're pretty close to one another, and I wholeheartedly supported him. I said, I don't need to interpolate because I believe in this cause. Kung natin masyadong kulitin, kailangan maumpisahan. As we all know, the journey of 1,000 steps, quoting, I think it was Chairman Mao, and I have no better way to quote it, always begins with the first step. And the first step has been achieved. You know, Mr. President, wala akong talagang nakikita na talagang mangyayari kaagad dyan kundi natin tutulungan ang mga kapwa natin mga Pilipino dito sa lugar ng BARMM. At nung ako yung pinapitan uli, na makita kami doon sa Malacanang, at it was one of my greatest pictures that I would always keep in my life. He was already on a wheelchair at the time. And yung unang picture kami lang dalawa, tapos sumama si Hashim Salah, I think it was Hashim Salamat, if I'm not mistaken. And then a lot of us also, Murad, Chief Minister Alaj Murad. And tatlo muna kami. And later on, everybody joined us. And you can see he was already in a wheelchair. Nung matapos ho yan, tuwan-tuwa kami dalawa at sabi natin, that was in August of 2008 when we first met at marami na tayong narating. At talagang pinaghirapan at dumaan sa maliit na butas ng karayom itong batas na itong ginawa natin. And I have nothing but prayers na mag-succeed ito. And I could see in his eyes. At talagang minimithi talaga ni Gafar Jasali. He was the personification to me of the insatiable desire, the love for our country, that we would have peace, and that we could be a model of Christian, Muslim or Muslim Christian, brotherhood and peace. So, Mr. President, marami nang nasabi si Senator Angara, and I agree with him. Pwede natin sabihin kung anong mali, kung anong ayaw natin. And I respect lahat kayo, sila Senator Marcos, na mayroon kayong mga maring concerns. But I think we cannot stop the movement. And that's why, alam ko, everybody will have the patience to make sure that the peace is attained. And so today, peace and security are unattainable, Mr. President, until unity is finally established. When I saw Gafar Jasali that day, I wheeled him all the way down to his car. I pushed the wheelchair, and I knew his days were numbered. I hate to say that word. But I thought I made a solemn promise to myself that we must make the peace work. Call it emotional, call it passion, and I'll call it compassion for those who have died. I want to call it the search for peace must be filled not only with passion, but also compassion. And that if we do not love one another and the peace is lost, walang mangyayari na naman sa atin. Just like the Taliban were driven out and now the Taliban is back in Afghanistan. And everybody is discombobulated by the events that are happening. And so today I ask for, and I vote for unity of our country. 2 million people have been displaced. Young people have lost their future. And it's important right now that we convert yung mga baril na kinukuha pa natin na dapat maibalik para magkaroon ng kapayapaan at dinig talaga yung security forces na kailangan na talagang lahat tayo under the Philippine government na talagang magagawa natin yung dapat natin gawin, yung mga kailangan gawin sa Mindanao. Kailangan suportahan natin. And that is why I vote. That picture is a picture I would always keep and show my grandchildren. that if we are all committed to peace, we can have unity in this country. And if we have unity and peace, we can probably prove to the whole world that we can handle the peace and that we can provide the blessings of peace, essentially in Mindanao and to our entire country. We can provide those blessings of peace so that we finally attain respect that is born out of our respect for our brothers in Mindanao and the respect that we need from the whole world. The whole world, ang daming hatian. Ang daming nagkakabiyak-biyak ang mundo dito sa tinatawag natin parang may crusades, parang may caliphate. Those are, without casting aspersion on those people, those are ambitions of people who have nothing better to do than seek power. It is not might that creates power. It is when you use might and when you use power for right that we make the peace, Mr. President. So today, bumaboto po ako doon. Hindi ko natitignan kung ano pa sasabihin dyan. Ako unang-una nag-author dyan, hindi ako kumuha ng paternity because dahil kay Gafar Jazali. And so in voting for this on third reading, I think right away of the face. And you've got to have a face. And that face, in my mind alone, I don't ask you to have that face as well, is that of Gafar Jazali when he told me we have lost a lot of treasure and blood and ayoko nang dadaanan pa ang dugo sapagkat panahon na para magkaroon tayo ng kapayapaan as brothers and sisters in our country. For those reasons, Mr. President, without any hesitation, I vote for the peace. I vote to give everybody the time that they need para sa ganon, mabuo na ito at wala ng rason. And I vote to make sure na mabilisan. It behooves the national government now to make sure na yung kakulangan ay mapunuan. And it behooves also our brothers in Mindanao to make sure na mabilisan nila ang kailangan gawin. Talagang parang pinapasan natin katulad nung araw na nagbabayanihan ng tao para buhatin ang bahay ng isang kapitbahay na lilipat. Katulad ng isang Muslim na nagbabakbakan doon, imam na nagbabakbakan doon sa Kauswagan. Na nakita ko sa television, tinago niya yung mga Kristiyano. At nung pumunta ako kaagad-agad doon sa Lanao, hinanap ko siya at nakita ko siya, nakamotorsiklo siya, at tuwan-tuwa ako nung makita ko siya. Lahat sila, hinahangad ng gusto ang kapayapaan. At yan siya. Ang tanongin ko kung nasa naroon na si Imam Alanoding Sarip, who hid Christian families in his mosque during the Colambugan massacre. Naandun na siya sa ibang lugar, sa norte ng Pilipinas. Wala na siya sa Mindanao. Nagpunta siya sa norte. Masakit sa isang taong to pick up stakes, iwanan ang kanyang sinilangan na bayan. But that's probably because hindi pa kompleto ang quest for peace. Tulungan po natin, tulungan ng gobyerno, tulungan natin lahat na magkaroon finally ng kapayapaan. Yung mga may alinlangan, santabi muna po natin yung alinlangan and let's all work together to bring the peace. Allahu Akbar and thank you Allah for Ghazal Jafari. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Amy Marcos and then Senator Recto.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With all due respect and admiration from my friend and colleague, Senator Tolentino, and also for the superhuman efforts of the BTC to respond to our queries regarding accountability, decommissioning, and disarmament, I am unable to apprehend in what way the postponement for a very long period of 3 years fulfills the very purpose of the BARMM, so well delineated in Article 1, Section 3, stating that the purpose of the organic law is to establish a political entity, provide a basic structure of government, to secure identity and posterity, allowing for meaningful self-governance within the framework of the Constitution. In fact, postponement may be in flagrant violation of the organic law, as stated in Article 4, Sections 2 and 3, most explicitly and compellingly in Section 10, which states that the freedom of choice should be paramount, and that all peoples within the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall be respected. Does the postponement of its very first regular election demonstrate that respect for self-government? Or does it, in fact, perpetuate the historical injustice endured for centuries by the peoples of Muslim Mindanao? For these fundamental reasons, I am unable to support the postponement of the first regular election of the BARMM and hence abstain. Thank you, Mr. President.
The President Pro Tem, Senator Ralph Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I associate myself with the manifestations made by Senator Marcos and Senator Ping Lacson. I will keep it short and brief. I am against postponing elections and am in favor of peace, Mr. President. So thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, also just a quick manifestation. The Bangsamoro Organic Law really started after the Marawi siege, when we saw what had happened to Marawi, that we really had to address the injustices being felt by our people in the Bangsamoro region. And we needed to come up with a long-term solution. And I thank my dear colleagues who supported me then when we passed this measure. You were the majority floor leader, Mr. President, at that time. And Senator Lacson was here. Our minority floor leader was also with us. And almost all our colleagues that participated today were part of the historic process that we had gone through with marathon hearings, several hours of debate on the floor, and consultation in all parts of the Bangsamoro. All the provinces of the Bangsamoro were visited by us, Mr. President. And even then, Senator Tolentino, who's now the chairperson of the committee in charge of this measure, was also a resource person at that time. As part of the peace process, he was a cabinet member, one of the representatives of the cabinet at that time, pushing for long-term peace in the region. Mr. President, after the Marawi incident, when we debated on this measure, we were able to move forward with the President committing to peace with MILF. We have experienced the longest period of peace in Mindanao where no major conflict had happened. Na wala pong MILF or MNLF or other freedom fronts fighting government. Maybe small skirmishes, Mr. President, and terrorism. Hindi mawawala yung terrorism kasi yung terrorism, Mr. President, ano yan kung iilang tao lang na masama ang pag-iisip na gustong itumba ang sistema nating gobyerno o ang ating way of life. And that we cannot avoid. But this is the longest period of peace where there was no conflict with a major armed group in Mindanao. And because of that, Mr. President, I have seen for myself, I reside in Cagayan de Oro, Bukidnon and Cagayan de Oro. I live there and I've seen the longest also as well, longest period of development. Mindanao was reaching double-digit growth rates. And the BARMM, believe it or not, Mr. President, the last NEDA numbers for the BARMM were also double-digit growth rate. Their GDP growth rate was double digits. So you can see, Mr. President, we can feel that with peace comes progress and development. So we can't let this just slip off our hands. Pero Mr. President, I stand here before you today, also a believer in democracy. So I'm making an appeal to our colleagues at the BARMM, lalo na po yung ma-appoint na bagong BTA, Bangsamoro Transition Authority, na sana po gawin nyo na po ang inyong ang tungkulin, lalo na sa paggawa ng electoral code. We understand what you had gone through now, periods of lockdowns, the pandemic, and we could not even move. When March came, Mr. President, the whole nation was in the lockdown. Nobody could do anything. They could not visit their constituencies. They could not deliver the goods. Talagang nakandara pa po tayo itong pandemic na ito. So there is reason why they could not really complete their task. But Mr. President, I'm appealing to my dear brothers and sisters in the BARMM that may this be the last postponement. May this be the last request to postpone the elections, because if they request this again, I may no longer be on their side, Mr. President. We need to have a democratic, peaceful democratic transition when the time comes in 2025. I think that will be the best for our people in the BARMM, and it will be the best for Mindanao and the Republic of the Philippines for long-lasting peace in the area. So just a reminder to them, Mr. President, we postponed for many reasons that we feel are valid, Mr. President, but let this be the last, because I don't think we'll be getting a very receptive Senate. Hopefully, hopefully there will be no second round to this postponement. So thank you very much, Mr. President, and we'll move forward to the next item on the agenda.